All right, today we have Erin Gaul here on It's All Speechy. Welcome, Erin.
Hi, Natalie. Thanks for having me.
Of course, thanks for joining. I am super excited. I think this topic we're talking about today of owning a practice is really big because I think there is a lot of people after COVID, everyone's like, I'm going to own my own thing. And
Exactly. Yep.
we're going to kind of go through like the pros and cons of business owning, as well as like things to take into consideration on if a business is right for you. Um, so, Erin, can you kind of start off and just kind of talk about who you are, what you're doing, how you got to where you are?
Sure. Yeah. Um, so I've been in practice about 8 years. I went to Gallaudet University in Washington, D.C.
Oh,
Uh, for my master's. Yeah, and it's a
nice.
cool school because it's primarily for deaf and hard of hearing students.
Mhm.
I originally thought I wanted to be an audiologist or a sign language interpreter. So I've been like
Oh,
immersed in deaf culture
mhm.
since high school.
Yeah.
I just loved it. But then after visiting an audiologist in undergrad, I was like, this isn't exactly what I had in mind.
Yeah.
And she said, well, what exactly did you have in mind? And I said, well, I thought like I'd see kids like learning to talk,
Mm.
and saying, I love you, mommy, for the first time. And she was like, oh, you want speech pathology. And I was like, what's that?
Yep.
Like I had no history of it. I never needed it. I had no family history. So I researched and I was like, oh my gosh, this is it.
Hmm.
So my husband got a job in DC. We went down there. I said, I'm not going anywhere except Gallaudet. And
Yeah.
luckily pulled a few strings and got in.
That's awesome.
uh, and so in the beginning, my first focus was deaf and hard of hearing oral habilitation.
Mm-hmm.
But that was my CFY. I was in a special needs preschool in a hard of hearing classroom. But then when I was done with my CF, I was like, because that was more so school based. And I was
Oh,
like, I don't know that this is for me. The
yeah.
hours were great, but the caseload was so high.
Oh,
I
God,
just
yeah.
felt like, I mean, I was a CF with like 82 kids at one point.
Jeez
Um,
Louise.
yeah, it was too much. So I found a local private practice and I was like, let me see if I like this. And I
Hmm.
loved the setting.
Yeah.
So I was there for a bit and then gradually it just ended up not being a good fit. And I started to dabble in the idea of a private practice only because clients were asking me, where are you going? Where are you going? And at that time, I
When you
wasn't sure.
left.
Yeah, I wasn't
Yeah.
sure where I was going. So I said, well, here's my email because I was interviewing everywhere.
Hmm.
Um, and I was like, I really don't know. I just know I need to get out of here. So
Yeah.
here's my email, stay in touch.
Hmm.
So I left there and I got a lot of emails from clients.
Nice.
And long story short, here we are.
Here we are.
Definitely evolved since then, but
Hmm.
it was a very unexpected start.
Yeah. So did you start like going into homes, or how did you start kind of that transition?
I did because, of
Yeah.
course, in the beginning, I'm like, I am not paying rent for something that I have, no clue will work.
Hmm.
You know, um, so I started out going to homes, and on the side, I was still doing early intervention for deaf and hard
Okay.
of hearing kids, just to
Yeah.
make sure I had the paycheck. You know,
Yeah.
uh, but I very, very quickly, well, that's up for interpretation. Maybe a year or so in, I was like, I cannot drive all over anymore.
Hmm. Oh, for
I was
sure.
driving across 2 counties, um, and I just kept thinking, all this time that I'm driving, I could be seeing clients. And
Hmm.
like a year in, I was like, okay, I'm confident enough that I feel like I'm ready to make the transition to an office. And
Yeah.
so that's what I did. I only lost one family because of distance. Everyone
Okay.
else followed me. So I've been
That's
office based
awesome.
ever since. And I will never, ever, ever go back to mobile therapy. It's funny because so many SLPs love it. And like, that's the
Hmm.
thing. I'm like, good for you. You know,
Yes.
it's not.
Yeah, I have like a love hate. When I went, we were Kentucky, I was in California for early intervention, and it was driving, and it was across like, I don't even remember how many counties that we went, but it was
Oh,
like small town, Northern California. And it would sometimes be like an hour, hour and a half, like to start off my day to like get down to like
right.
the
And that's,
cluster of houses I'm seeing. And I mean,
yeah,
it wasn't like I went into it hating driving, and like I came out of it like, okay, like driving's not too bad as long as I have like an
yeah,
audiobook or a podcast. Like,
right. That's the only thing I miss, like that decompression time in the car,
mm-hmm.
like listen to a show or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, but that's the only thing I miss. I like
Oh,
having
for sure.
control of my environment.
Mm-hmm. Oh gosh, some of those houses you go into and you're like, all right,
Yeah,
shoes on,
I don't
like
know how
we're
I'm gonna do this. Yeah,
not sitting anywhere. We're
right. And
squatting all session.
it can be so uncomfortable and awkward. And
Mm-hmm.
how do I navigate this? So at
Yeah.
least now, I don't have to worry about that.
Yes. Oh, for sure. So now, do you have like one location that you
Yeah.
are at
Mm-hmm.
solely? Yeah. Would you
One
think of?
location.
Oh, sorry. Go for it.
Oh no, I've considered expanding,
Mm-hmm.
but it would have to be at a time where I had a smaller caseload. Like
Yeah.
I can't imagine taking that on right now and trying to balance my caseload here. And I'll get into more of this, but like I do everything here. I don't have additional help except for another SLP. So I'm like,
Okay.
okay, so I'm going to be receptionist, biller, scheduler,
Mm-hmm.
therapist at two locations. I think not.
Yeah.
I like to keep my sanity.
Yep. You're like
So,
mental
you
health
know,
still important to me.
it is what it is. I'd rather be small and personal and know
Oh,
that
for
I'm
sure.
providing quality care and service.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's one thing like I've noticed in Las Vegas is because trying to find like, okay, like what's speech like here, like since I'm new, but there's so many locations that have like there's so many businesses that are now just like, oh, here's our like 7 locations, and the
Yes.
amount of
Yeah,
people you hear that they were like, oh yeah, like they weren't super personable or there's like a high turnover because
exactly. Yeah.
and it's kind of frustrating. And I'm like, so that's kind of where I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna dabble my toes because like the personal side of the business is the best, and like that's something that we're kind of
I
losing
I mean
sight of.
yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, we we call those out here in Pennsylvania, we say those are the therapy factories. I've heard
Ah,
them referred
mm-hmm.
to. And there's definitely one in particular and one that seems to be on the rise. And some families are perfectly fine with that. And the
Mm-hmm.
appeal there is that they accept like all insurances, like, and some
Yes.
smaller practices, like you just can't compete with that.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be tricky for sure.
Yeah, and those locations too, they'll usually have like speech OTP, like everything in one.
Yes,
Where I'm
yes.
like,
Like
yeah,
one
like
stop shop, and I'm like, I definitely don't have that here.
no,
My 1,200 square foot office. Like, no, there's no sensory gym. There's none of that. But
no.
I at least feel confident that what I do offer is excellent. You know?
Mm-hmm. And you have to be. You have to like really
Yeah.
believe in your, and we'll probably get to it too, but like you have to believe in your business for other
Yeah.
people to
Oh my
believe in
gosh.
it. Like if you don't and you're questioning like, am I
No,
doing
no,
things
no.
right? Like people are gonna see it.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So kind of go into so business owning. Like what are you personally, what are like the pros and cons um to
Oh
business
boy.
owning? Or some
I
big
mean,
ones that you can think of.
yeah. I think the biggest pro is that I am in charge. I
Hmm.
am shaping this practice. It looks how I
Yeah.
want it to look. I hire who I want. I'm not forced to work with anyone that I don't like or don't get along with. I have an SLP that comes in the afternoon, and she is amazing and fabulous, and I want to kidnap her because I just never want her to leave.
Yeah.
um, and then I have another one that's we're trying to build a caseload for during the day to help me out, and she's amazing. And so those are really big ones. In
Hmm.
addition to scheduling,
Yeah.
I'm terrible at it, but you can limit your hours
Yeah.
if you really wanted to, like for whatever reason, you have kids or whatnot. I don't have kids, but
Yeah.
if I wanted to be done by 5, I could. Am
Uh-huh.
I? No,
Yep.
because there's a big market for after school. But
100%.
I know that I don't have to check my PTO to go to
Oh yeah.
doctor's visits, which I've had to do recently. So that's another
Hmm.
huge pro. Um, just being the one in charge and
Yeah.
facilitating my vision, not someone else's.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I know that's like one thing with my boyfriend owning a practice, like, and why I kind of went PRN and not like the full route, because it's like his flexibility to be like, oh, like we're going somewhere this weekend, Thursday, Friday blocked off, or Friday
Yeah,
afternoon, like blocked, like that kind of thing. And it's super nice. Like, I mean, you're still doing like paperwork or something maybe on those days as you're
it's like
traveling, but
exactly end. I was away this past weekend for a wedding, and I put an away message on my email, and I was still responding because it's in
mhm.
my blood now. I
Yeah.
could have said no, like I'm not responding. It's really hard. It's really hard to turn it off.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I think there's some people that are really good. Like I'll listen to podcasts and they're like 5 o'clock, all work stuff gets like shut down. We don't just close the screen and let it sleep. Like it's shut down. And there's other people
I
that are like, nope, I
I
need to like
really,
talk to them.
yeah,
Like they need something. We
I really want to get to that point. I'm getting better,
yeah.
um, but I'm not there yet.
Yeah. It's definitely a trend. I mean, especially like starting the business, you're putting in long out. Like you're
Oh yeah.
setting everything up. Like it takes a long time. So to kind of
Oh,
be
and
like, oh, I
the,
don't have to do that anymore. Like,
yeah,
what do I do with
yeah.
the free time?
Right. Yeah. It's like you have to give yourself permission to relax and not
Hmm.
work. And that's so foreign, I feel like, in American culture in general,
Yeah.
So I'm really trying to embrace that more. Like, hey, you have your own business, take advantage, turn it
Hmm.
off at 6 o'clock.
Yeah. Oh, for
Yeah.
sure. Would like working over and like not having set hours be a con for you, or like what would be a con for business owning?
A con, it's funny that I say scheduling's a pro. It's also a con because
Yeah.
if I get on the phone with someone and I feel terrible for their situation, I'm gonna
Mm.
try and find a spot. Even if I say I am not working past 6 and I get a client that's like, oh my gosh, we are so in need of X, Y, or Z. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just, I figure it out. I hate having a wait list. I have
Yeah.
some now on a wait list just because, like, I can't work till 8 o'clock at night now.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
So that's definitely a con. Like sometimes I think I need a receptionist just so they can block off my calendar
Yeah.
and they can be the one on the phone saying, "No, I'm sorry, we don't have Tuesday, at 4:15 available."
Yeah.
Um, because Erin's, eating a snack or going to the bathroom, but
Hmm.
I don't do that for myself.
Yeah.
Um, and then I mean, it's my choice, but the fact that I wear all hats at my business, that is a con. Because
Hmm.
I've never felt really ready to hand over my work, like the billing, the
Yeah.
scheduling, and all that to someone else, unless I
Hmm.
personally knew them. I knew that they know this business. I don't have
Yeah.
to babysit them, and I just haven't gotten to that point yet. So, you
Hmm.
know,
Well, I guess
um,
as SLPs, we're type A, and it's like
yeah,
I
and
have a
I'm
process.
it's funny, like outside of my work life, I am so type B. I am so chill. It'll be fine. It'll get done. But
Hmm.
at work, I am so type A. I'm trying to work on it.
You're like, how can I get like my personal life, Erin, like here into the
Let's bring them
office?
together a little bit.
Yeah.
So I would say those are the two cons: the scheduling, not sticking to my schedule,
Hmm.
and wearing all the hats.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I'd have to agree, at least like from an outsider looking at like my boyfriend. I think those would probably be two of the things too that he's like bummed about, of
Yeah,
like, oh, like I have to stay late because this person can only do this time, and so now
right.
that's I'm not getting home till 8 or whatever it is, and I'm like, oh, okay, like,
Yeah, yeah. And it's like technically you can say no, but they're
hmm,
your clients or
it's hard.
patients. No. Um,
Yeah.
I always think if I show flexibility, hopefully they'll show me flexibility if I ever
Hmm.
need it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So kind of going in, we kind of discussed like questions to ask yourself when owning a business to like make sure that that is a good path for you to take. And I know some of the things you mentioned. So like the first one was that you need to have a combination of business skills as well as clinical. Can you
Yep.
kind of elaborate on that one?
Sure. I mean, it's fairly straightforward in that
Mm-hmm.
you can be an amazing therapist,
Yeah.
excellent at what you do, but if you are disorganized
Mm-hmm.
um, behind the scenes, unless you plan on hiring like an office manager, it's going to be an inevitable mess.
Yeah.
And it's been a lesson for me, and it's been a learning curve because I was never in the market to open a practice or be a business owner. You know, like these terms, like 5.5 years later, are still foreign to me.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of, okay, do I provide a great service? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Can I also maintain my schedule? Can I also return calls in a timely manner? Can I
Mm-hmm.
keep my office clean and presentable? You know, there is
Yeah.
so much that goes into it. And some people really have the personality, I want to show up, do my job, and go home. Nothing
Mm-hmm.
extra, you know? And that
Yeah.
is totally fine. It's just that that is not private practice.
Oh gosh, no. Oh no. Do
No.
you, so like the business side of it, obviously, like in school, we do lots of clinical, we learn everything about assessment, treatments, like
Yeah.
they lay everything like that out. But like the business side of it, like I never took a business class. Like, especially in like grad school, it's not like they have like, oh, you want to open a therapy practice? Well, here's a class for it. Maybe some schools have it, mine didn't.
Mine
Um,
certainly not. No.
did you like take any classes or books or anything like that that kind of helped you through, or was this just like trial and error? Let's hope
I
it
did
works
not.
out.
I had a really great colleague at the time for like a year who was telling me, you should just do this yourself. You should do it yourself. She's in mental health. But
Mm-hmm.
I would pick her brain for
Oh yeah.
everything. And she had a very similar looking practice that now I do. And honestly, she was my main source of
Yeah.
information about that business side.
So kind of like a
You know,
mentor to kind of bounce ideas
yeah,
off of.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I felt because she had real life experience in the business world that I didn't feel like I needed to like pick up a book or listen
Mm-hmm.
to a training or anything like that. I think some
Yeah.
SLPs would really thrive doing that, but my thing is always seeing someone
Mm-hmm.
do. It's just like, you know, back in school, what's your learning style? I
Yeah.
need to see you show me. I need to do it, act it out. So that was the most helpful thing for me.
Yeah. That's awesome. Like especially because they're in like that therapy, not like
Yeah,
specifically speech therapy, but like the mental health. They are doing the sessions. They work with insurance. They know kind of those types of things, which.
yeah, it's pretty similar. You know, she was
Mm-hmm.
working mostly with adults and all, so the fact that I'm
Yeah.
mostly pediatric was different and all, and
Yeah.
um, but overall, she was a huge help.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, that's one thing
Yeah,
like I was kind of like looking forward to is like, okay, someone to bounce ideas off of and like just and like that's where the internet kind of comes in handy too of like there's so many pages that you can be like, hey, I need help with like this business thing and you might have like
yep.
even like three people comment and it's like, can I DM you? And now you have three different conversations of
Yeah, yeah. I will say some of the Facebook groups are really helpful too for like a quick question.
mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
you know, like something about taxes. You know, do you file your own
Mm-hmm.
taxes? You know, that kind of thing. Sometimes I think it can be almost overwhelming because
Oh
everyone
god.
has a different opinion about something. So
Mm-hmm.
I have to be pretty desperate to ask on a Facebook group,
Yeah,
to be honest.
I will do like I mean I'll post, but it's like take it with a grain of sand and like
Mm-hmm.
also be true to like what my mindset is of like what I'm trying to do. So like one thing I just posted about on there was like a feeding group. Like I want to supply like a feeding group for like 4 to 5 kiddos and then we just basically play with food and like read books about food and whatever. Like just immersing the kids in like healthy eating and cooking and just sensory and I was like, okay, like I don't know anyone that started one of these. Like, how much should I do? Like, what do
Yeah.
I don't know. So I posted in one and I had like a couple people respond. And I was like messaging them just like all individually. And yeah, they all had like different answers of like how I
Yeah.
could go about it. And like, then that's kind of where I like pick. I'm like, oh, like Sherry had a good one here.
Yeah.
And
A little bit
Clara,
of
she had a
this,
good
a
one
little bit of
there.
that. Yeah. Yeah. It's exactly that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you have to go into it thinking, okay, I might not get exactly the answer I need, but what can
Yeah.
I take from it?
Oh,
You
for
know, not
sure.
everyone has the same vision as
Yeah.
you. So,
And like sometimes like two of us, it was like a lot of things we meshed on, but like we had two very different populations. She had like the birth to, or
oh
not
boy.
birth to six, but like 6 to 12, so like just starting, where I'm
Yeah.
looking more at like toddlers. So I'm like, obviously like our sessions are gonna look very different.
Yes. Very different. Yeah.
But like money and stuff like was kind of what we focused on. But um yeah. The second thing was that you can't be someone who depends on another looking over your shoulder to get your work done.
Yeah. Have we not had those like supervisors saying, get your notes in, get your notes
Mm-hmm.
in, or how much productivity, are you
Uh-huh.
at, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so if you recognize that you are someone who needs that push, that reminder, whether it's a
Mm-hmm.
gentle nudge or a really hard push,
Yeah.
private practice might not be the best fit
Yeah.
because you're not going to have any of that.
No. It's
Um,
all on your time and
yep,
unless
yep, and I've
insurance will
definitely,
sometimes push you.
oh my gosh, I accept one plan and
Mm-hmm.
that is enough.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to try it. I didn't have to. I was private pay up until like this time last year.
Oh,
And
okay,
I was
well.
like, let me just see,
Mm-hmm.
like if it's doable. Because there's another thing you ask in the groups. What are the pros and cons of accepting insurance? And you get the people that are like, never take insurance.
Everyone's cons.
It's awful. You don't get enough money, and they are right. But then
Yeah.
you see the other people saying insurance isn't that bad. Once you get the hang of it, you're fine, and it's like,
Yeah.
okay. So I was like, let me give this a try. There's one main plan in my area, and it's not too bad, but it's enough that
Mm.
it gives me a very light headache on a daily basis
Yeah.
versus like, a migraine. So I'll take that for now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so whether you're billing insurance, whether you're, recording notes, whether you're cleaning your waiting room, no
Mm-hmm.
one's there to say, hey, did you get X, Y, or Z done? So
Yeah.
that's something you really need to consider.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. That's one thing, like, I can't remember what insurance plan it was, but my boyfriend was talking about one that he's like, I'm not renewing with them. Like, whatever insurance it was he has to basically, like, write up a report or something every 4 weeks to justify
Okay.
services. So not only, like, are his notes justifying services, but he has to write another report every 4 weeks to be like, here's why this person should come back next month. Like,
Uh-huh.
and he's like,
Yeah.
it's
It
tedious.
just
Like, it's
doesn't
extra work I don't need to do because my notes are showing that he needs it.
right.
Like,
Just another hoop they try to make you go through to hold on to their money.
mm-hmm.
And it's exhausting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I went in and I was kind of the same, like private pay, like keep it easy, especially like starting the business. I'm like, I don't want to deal with all of that extra
Yeah.
stuff.
I never would have done this
Mm-hmm.
accepting an insurance plan in the beginning. There is no way. I would have drowned. There's
Yeah.
no way.
Oh gosh, yeah. And it's just like too, you're already like figuring out your business. You're figuring out
Oh,
like
yeah. Big
how
stuff.
should my notes be looking? How should like I do scheduling and whatnot? And to have like insurance there being like, oh, you can only see them this amount of time, or you need to have this,
Right.
this, and this in your notes, or whatever it might be. Like it's just like that added stressor that's not really needed
No,
until you need it.
yeah, I think if I had to go back, I don't know that I would do it again, but it has helped a lot of families, so I'm grateful for that at least.
Yeah. I was like looking into it, but I was like, you know what? Maybe instead of like the insurance route, since I'm doing my business like on the side and I have an income, I can like implement like a sliding pay scale to kind of
Yeah,
help
that's
those
true.
families too that like need it. No one's
Yeah,
used it yet, but
absolutely.
like it's there.
It's an
Or
option.
super
Yeah,
bills.
Yep. That good old fashioned super bill. Yep.
Yep. um all right, so we like kind of have touched on this one a wee bit. But having confidence in your value. Like rates are a big thing and you have to
Oh,
set
great.
them and stick to them.
Yes.
So you've kind
Yes.
of touched on like the confident part, but
This, oh, this has been maybe the biggest struggle I've had in
mhm.
private practice setting my rates. I
Yeah.
did my research, like for other local private pay practices, and of course, I thought that's too high. That's too high. That's ridiculous. These kids need help, you
Mhm.
know. But then I had to really look at my prices compared to others, and also take into consideration, Erin, you are super specialized, and
Mhm.
that's something I wanted to touch on with this, having a niche. And my niche is childhood apraxia of speech. And I've, in the last couple of years, really started getting knee deep in orofacial myofunctional therapy.
Oh, yeah.
Both
Mhm.
are in really super high demand.
Yeah.
So I had to tell myself, okay, you want to help as many families as possible. That's awesome.
Mhm.
But you're also worth X or Y, you know, because you are
Mhm.
so specialized.
Yeah.
Um, one thing I would do in my head I would set my rates, I'd have them on my forms, and then someone would call me up asking if I took, Medicaid.
Mhm.
And I'd be like, I'm sorry, I don't. What are your rates? I don't know if we can afford that. And in my head, I was like, I got to make these lower. Maybe I'll
Yeah.
slide the scale for just them, But then I was like, no, like this will be
Mhm.
a very slippery slope.
Yeah.
So I was talking with my husband, and we were both saying how like we don't blink an eye to go get, I'm trying to think of like other services out of pocket. Your nails done, a
Mhm.
massage, like let alone speech therapy,
Mhm.
which is a basic function, communication we all need to have.
Yeah.
So when I started thinking about it that way, like, okay, well, what are people willing to spend their money on? I was like, they can either take my rate or they can leave it.
Mhm.
And some have left it, even though I still consider myself really reasonable.
Yeah.
So deciding, hey, here's my niche. This is why they're coming to me. I
Mhm.
can produce results, and I'm worth this amount.
Yeah.
Whether it's putting it in your documentation and then putting it on your website, just sticking with it. Sometimes I had to
Mhm.
put post-its on my computer by my
Yeah.
phone as reminders. You are worth your rate, so that I wouldn't back
Mhm.
down. You
Oh,
know,
for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, mine and like rates are such a weird like people don't talk about them. Like
Oh
no one
no,
says
and
anything like
they are so different. Like you can't compare.
mhm.
Like that's why when people say, what do you guys charge for speech therapy in the private practice groups? It's like, well, you can't ask a therapist in rural Kansas versus a
Mhm.
therapist in New York City. That is
Yeah.
completely different. And yeah, it is such a, hot topic at times, and you get people just on
Mhm.
fire. You charge too much. You charge
Yeah.
too little. It's like, okay, okay, thanks for your opinion. But
mhm.
I look at it as if I can bring home a paycheck I'm happy with, I can pay my rent, and I have a solid caseload, then I'm happy. If it's too
Yeah.
much, sorry. If it's too little for other therapists,
Mhm.
okay, charge more yourself. But
Yeah.
my rates work for me, and I don't see them changing anytime soon.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, like you look into it like you said like comparing with other services like getting your nails done or getting your hair cut and like how
Right? Yeah.
much that is and it's like we went
Wild.
through a
Yeah.
master's program like we can't be like if you go to a haircut and they cut off your hair and they're like oh so it's 50 and you're like oh ugh, I have third like
Well, I would never even dream of saying, can you make it 40? Like,
mm-hmm.
no, like
Yeah.
that's the rate, that's what they're worth. So I can
Mm-hmm.
either pay it, get my hair cut, or find somewhere else, you know?
Yep. Yeah, and say
But
if you really don't want to pay, cut your own hair. Like there's
right, cut your own
options,
hair and best of luck. You know,
but like speech therapy, like we are the medical field, and I think people
we
do
are.
forget about that because like speech therapists, I feel like since the majority of us are in schools,
It's lumped into education,
people
which
don't think like
yeah,
they're
no,
actually doing
but we
anything.
are. We're in healthcare, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
healthcare, you know, is a service that's absolutely needed,
Yep.
and it can be pricey, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, if insurance rates were better and more consistent and didn't make you jump through fire, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um, I'd be willing to take others, but like the reimbursement rates are just like, you have to be kidding me. Like, there's
Yeah.
no way. I did not go to, you know, a
Mm-hmm.
master's program, you know, for an insurance company to tell me what I'm worth.
Yeah. When I've seen some of those, I'm like, oh my God. Like there's no way on this planet Earth I would put in the work for insurance to get
No,
like
I
75%
recommend
of
you
it
not.
taken out. Like
Yeah, exactly. Like, no.
there's no way. Um Also I think this one is kind of even people, but like being able to tell people no and putting that foot
Yeah.
down.
Yeah. Um, I mean, this pops up in more ways than one, whether it's scheduling. No, I
Mm-hmm.
cannot see you at 7:30 p.m. on a Friday.
Yeah.
No, I will not change the diagnosis code, so insurance will reimburse you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, no, I will not tell your school district that they're providing incorrect services, and you know, it it really it can be tough. And it's
Yeah.
not like I have a supervisor to say, hey, can you come in on this meeting? Can you come sit in on this session and talk to these parents or
Mm-hmm.
talk to this inquiry? You know, um, it's all me. I have to be able to be ethical,
Mm-hmm.
also look out for myself. Um, so this one, this one's gotten very important to me over the last year or so. Whether it's a difficult case,
Mm-hmm.
um, where families really push the limits and
Yeah.
you know put you in a really awkward space.
Mm-hmm.
But any clinician going into private practice, yeah, you have to have those two little letters, that very small word that means a lot. No, 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 no.
Yeah. Or even when people are like, I know another big thing right now, ABA, and there's like some
Yes.
therapists, like I've seen on Facebook groups and stuff, where they're like, no, I will not see your child if they're in ABA therapy. When there's others that are like, oh yeah, we'll come to ABA therapy, like this is great. And like, I think
Mm-hmm.
that's also when it's coming in, like how you're providing your services, like you have to be able to say no. Like those people that are like, I can't be affiliated with ABA, no, and like having the guts to
Yeah,
do that because
yeah. I am not your provider. Yeah.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and like I don't support ABA. I don't want to go around because I mean I'm in enough autism like
Yeah.
groups on
Uh-huh.
Facebook that I don't want to be spreading that, but like I'm also not going to say no to a family if they're like, "Oh yeah, like they have ABA and we also want to see you
Right.
for speech." I'm like, "I'm here for speech. I'm
Yes.
here to work on
That.
speech. What you do outside of my doors, like you
Yeah.
do."
It's up to you. And so many
Mhm.
parents and all are have such good intentions, you know, when it
Yeah.
comes to the ABA thing. I mean, that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah,
But
it for sure is.
like, you know, I've had families say, "Can our um, behavioral techs sit in on your sessions? Can our, you know,
Mhm.
oh gosh, I forget what they're called, BCBAs sit
Yeah.
in on your sessions? What can they work on with communication?" I'm like, I
Mhm.
am I am the one teaching communication. Like,
Yeah.
if I find out that you're doing some augmentative alternative communication at home through the BCBA, like that's not okay. They are
Mhm.
not the communication experts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
there's another example, you know, setting your limits.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I feel like that's a huge one right now. I'm being like, yeah, accepting people, but also being like, this is my therapy style. Like,
Yep.
this is how I do things. If you don't like it and you don't agree with it, and like, there's between people of like, oh, we just want to play based. Like, we don't, versus people like, no, like, I want my kid to sit there and like make it look like they're learning, like at a table with the worksheets or whatever. It's like, You have
exactly.
to
It's
be
like,
like, I'm sorry, like that's not.
that's not how I work. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
you can go down the road or find someone else. I'll help you. I'll give you some
Yeah.
contact information for someone else. But
Mm-hmm.
yes, saying like, no, there's another thing like certain clientele, like I will not do feeding. I do
Yeah.
pre and post frenectomy care in the myofunctional therapy world, but
Mm-hmm.
like I would rather close my doors than do feeding. So it's so funny you say that. Like I am
Yep.
just I have such I have like below no interest in doing feeding.
You're like,
So if
half the
someone
time I
calls,
forget it even exists. Like it's
right?
that.
So if someone calls and they say I'm looking for feeding therapy for my 3-year-old,
You're like, shut
I
it
have to be
down,
able to
send you
say
send you somewhere
I
else.
yeah, I have to be able to say, I'm sorry, I don't provide that service. You know, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I feel badly saying that, but I'm
Yeah.
like, ethics wise, I'm like, you should not come to me.
Uh-huh. Oh, for sure. That's like me with like stuttering. Where like in the school I had some kids and I'm like, I mean, I can't send them anywhere because they're on my caseload in the school, but I'm like, I
Yes,
don't know what to do with you. Like,
yep, yep. Stuttering is so fascinating to me.
uh-huh.
I've
Yeah.
done some fluency work, like therapy, and I really enjoy it, but it's like every kid is so different.
Uh-huh.
Something that
Oh,
works
for
for
sure.
one that I'm like, yep, I'm using this,
Mm-hmm.
and I got
Yeah.
nothing. You know, for the next kid, it's just wild.
And you're like, oh, I can't do that same thing. Like, what do
No,
I do
no, I
now?
can't
Like,
use that modality, you know, because it's not working for Billy when it did work for,
mm-hmm.
Ashley.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah. Fluency is like a mind blowing and I don't know, maybe one day like I'll sit down and like really like dive into it. But I'm like right now it's just like I'm
Yeah.
yeah, more in like the feeding. I'm like, okay, like this is the
Good for
area I'm
you.
focusing on
Feed,
right
keep
now.
moving.
Like learn everything I can.
Yeah, yeah. Good for you. That's great.
Yeah, it's I'll let you know how it goes.
Please, yeah.
How long I
Because I
continue
have
with
no
it.
clue.
Um oh yeah. Okay, we've kind of touched on this one too. Being able to have like a combination of like a welcoming warm personality while also selling your self and selling your skills.
Hmm. Um, this is basically like me telling SLPs you have to be able to put yourself out there,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's other local PTs, OTs, pediatricians to let them know you're there,
Yeah.
parents when they call.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's that fine dance of I'm amazing, I'm the one you should come to,
Yeah.
but also not being in the face about it, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Um, and I would say I like to be professional but approachable.
Yeah.
Like I want I want parents to see results, you know? I want
Mm-hmm.
them to think, okay, I came here for her skills, but also Erin's just a nice person. Erin's
Yeah.
just fun. Erin's just like my kid just loves seeing Erin.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
being able to switch those hats to clinician in the therapy sessions,
Mm-hmm.
but then talking to mom and dad afterward about a super bill that was incorrect or something,
Yep.
having that engaging personality is so imperative because I've met some SLPs in private practice that I'm just like, huh, I wonder how you come across because just socially
Yep.
a little bit of awkwardness, and I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like, if I was a parent calling, I would be a little thrown off, like it,
Yeah.
whether it's shyness or personality, like there's just no room for that in private practice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, sometimes you see in the groups like, oh, if you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily believe that.
No.
So you have to be comfortable selling yourself and your
Mm-hmm.
skills.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think that's like that's the one thing that's hard for me. Like, I'm not I need to sell myself to people. It's just like, yeah, like, you get what you get. Like, here I am
Yeah.
kind of thing. And so the fact that, yeah, I'm calling out to local dentists, local pediatricians, local daycares, like, and trying
Uh-huh.
to get, like, word out there. And I'm like,
I know.
so like, oh
And
yeah, I'm a
yes,
speech therapist and like
you
I
also
do
do.
therapy.
Yeah.
So
What
if
kind
you
of therapy?
want,
And that's the thing too. Like gradually, you have
Mhm.
to do less and less of that because you
Yeah.
start getting word of mouth referrals. Like I think
Mhm.
most of my referrals now are word of mouth, whether it's a
Yeah.
pediatric dentist that I work mutually with,
Mhm.
or current clients, past clients. I love that. Like
Yeah.
my one girlfriend sends me screenshots of Facebook moms groups recommending me because they've been here.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
gradually, you're still selling yourself to every family that walks in the door,
Mhm.
but at least for me, and ideally, it's less and less about cold calling,
Mhm.
and showing up places randomly with Panera or Philly
Yeah.
pretzels. I really never did that because I'm
Mhm.
just not comfortable doing that. I wanted my skill set to speak for itself.
Oh, for sure.
Um, so there's like all this stuff like lunch and learns where you bring lunch to a doctor's office and you talk about your business, and I'm like, I know that's not for me.
You're like, nah, that's.
I'm a little too busy for that, quite frankly. But
Mhm.
some people do that and they do it really well and it benefits them, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, so every clinician has to figure out what does getting my face, my skills out there look like, and being
Mhm.
confident with it.
Yeah, because there's so many avenues you can take and like going around. Like I have one right now, and like they came from a daycare that had my card. Like they're the
Yeah,
only ones that came from that daycare, but like they came and it's great.
yeah,
But it's also like using because I know like Facebook groups can be a little iffy too. Like especially if like
yeah.
you go on there and someone's like, "Oh, I need speech services," and you're like, "Do I like? Is that self promotion? Is it not?" Like I don't know, and like
Right.
how
Like,
I've understood it is like you can't post and be like, "Hey, I have open spots, like come to speech therapy." But if someone posts and is like, "Help, speech," you can be like,
yeah,
"Hey, I'm a speech therapist, like DM me," or
right.
whatever it might be. So like
Yeah,
that's kind of a nice little technique.
I tend to never respond unless someone purposely tags me. Your speech path. Do you have
Mm-hmm.
any spots? We love
Yeah.
Erin, that kind of thing. Otherwise, I
Yeah.
wait for Marketing Monday or whatever these groups have,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Mm-hmm.
I tend to just let it go and let my clients speak for me.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And that's like the nice thing too. Like once, yeah, you sell yourself, you sell your services, but like you're also warm. You're welcoming. People enjoy being like in your office, in your therapy sessions, and in your rooms. Like, then yeah, that word of mouth is
Oh
huge.
my gosh,
Of
that's
just like
almost all I need,
it's the free, like it's a free marketing technique. Be like, just
Yeah,
tell someone that
yeah.
you had fun today. Like,
Just being approachable and warm and
mm-hmm.
welcoming. I get a lot of families saying we wanted small and you delivered. It was
Yep.
so personal. You knew my kid. You knew that he
Mm-hmm.
loved Everest from Paw Patrol. Like
Yeah,
it's personal here, and that's how I want it to stay.
that's awesome. Yeah, I love that. Um, The last one that I kind of took to was that therapy almost has the least to do with being in private practice.
Yeah. So I want to clarify that in that, of course, you need
Yeah.
to be good at your job
You have to
because you're
provide
gonna
something that's
right. You have to provide a
ethical.
service. Yes, of course. But what I mean by that is that at the end of the day, my stressors, my responsibilities are more so on the business side than
Mm-hmm.
therapy. And you have
Yeah.
to be able to handle that. Like if you're at, well, schools have a lot of paperwork and all, but it's not something where every day I'm thinking, all right, I have to plan my sessions. Oh, that didn't go right. Da 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 da.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly what's going on from day to day is the behind the scenes. The
Yeah.
therapy is almost my break.
Yeah.
I get to hang out with
It
cool
is.
kids, cute kids that are like making jokes and telling stories they shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's like the break from
Yeah.
the work from the day. So that's what I mean by therapy almost has the least to do with having a private practice.
Yeah.
Therapy is not what keeps me up at night.
No.
It's everything else.
Yeah.
Because there's
I
good
think.
days, there are bad days where you
Mm-hmm.
think, what am I doing? I just need to close my doors, go work for someone else, have an easier time. But then, I wake up, uh,
Mm-hmm.
theoretically speaking, and then I realize, no, no, that's not really what you want. It's just a
Yeah.
bad day, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Oh,
Um,
for sure.
that you really gotta. you got to go with the punches in private practice because there
Yeah.
are a lot of them.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like even when you see people like complaining, because right now speech is not a very highly ranked field, like especially for the
Yeah,
people that's in it.
right.
But
Yeah.
what you see mostly is like people aren't complaining like, oh my gosh, I had to see a kid for articulation, or oh my gosh, I don't know what to do with this kid with fluency. Like it's
Hmm.
usually like, oh my gosh, I'm stressed because the people above me aren't happy with what I'm doing, aren't happy
Yeah.
with how many people I'm seeing, aren't happy with my like paperwork on the side, like, or
Yep.
things like that. And it's like it has nothing to even do with the therapy and what we're providing
Yes.
is the reason why people don't like our field. It is the external
Everything
things
else.
trying to get into our
Yeah.
position.
Yes. And
And
like
that's
all people
frustrating.
I do, yeah, like all every SLP I've ever met, like they're just so good hearted and like
Mm-hmm.
we just want to help people. We want to just do our jobs well and not
Mm-hmm.
be bothered, you know, but it's just not the case. So what I mean, that's
Yeah.
anywhere. But if you're at the head of your private practice, it's a lot. Some days more than others. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, therapy is usually not what I'm thinking about at the end of the day.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So I kind of want to go into your organization that you want to promote here. Um, Kind of tell us a little bit about that, why you support it, kind of the background there.
Yeah, so it's a bit tangential, but my organization is Unite for Her. It's a local breast cancer awareness and charity group. I think it's based out of Westchester, Pennsylvania. It's local to me in the Philadelphia suburbs, and it means something to me because, as a lot of my friends, family, colleagues know, I was diagnosed with early stage breast cancer on February 28th of this year.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, because of genetics, my
Oh,
genetic results, family history. My maternal aunt had died
oh
at
gosh, I'm
36
sorry.
from breast
Oh
cancer,
my
and
gosh.
it was a little eerie. That's the age I was when I was diagnosed. I just turned 37, so
Oh, geez, Louise.
it was really weird. I digress. So because of everything working against me, I was considered high risk. I went the double
Mm-hmm.
mastectomy with reconstruction route, and
Okay.
these organizations, I mean, they send you literally free help, whether
That's
it's
amazing.
based on
That gave me
donations
chills.
to the company. Yeah.
Like free?
Yes, I paid nothing. They send me
That's
button down
awesome.
pajamas. They send mastectomy pillows. They're just specially designed. They'll provide meals to women. Um, it's just absolutely amazing. They organize events too, like walks and all that. Like we're coming up on, well, when we're recording this, it's a few days away from October, and that's Breast
Mm-hmm.
Cancer Awareness Month. So I wanted to take advantage and just kind of get the word out because
Yeah.
as SLPs, it is so hard for us to turn it off and slow
Mm-hmm.
down. And I
Yeah.
will say my diagnosis was like the worst thing ever, but it was also the best thing ever because
Mm-hmm.
it gave me permission finally to say, no, you take care of yourself, Erin. Like everything else
Mm-hmm.
can wait. If
Yeah.
clients if clients are still there when you come back, I was out for 10 weeks, then great. If they're
Mm-hmm.
not, that's great too.
Yeah.
And I'm trying not to get sucked back into the vortex of 24/7 thinking about work. I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
maintain that mentality of take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Um, and I wish there was more talk in the SLP field about mental health. Um, there's an SLP, I think her name's Rebecca Reinking of Adventures in Speech Pathology. She's based out of
Oh.
Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And she is so great about being honest about her mental health and being in the SLP field.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
just admitting we have hard days. Some days
Yep.
our caseloads are too high. Some days we don't want to go to work.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like SLPs, we try to be superheroes, and we're not.
Yeah.
We're not. We are just ladies and some gents.
We're humans
Yep, yep.
with
um,
feelings.
exactly. And
Good days and bad days.
we have to
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge them and
Yeah.
give yourself that mental health day. So,
That's
Unite for
awesome.
Her is just a really amazing organization local to me.
That's awesome. So do they work with like solely females like in the local area, or do they like send these things like
That's
nationwide
a good
or
question. I think they're primarily local, but I
okay.
want to say that if someone inquires, they're not going to say no.
Yeah.
I just know that this one happens to be based out of
Hmm.
a local town. But
Nice.
I had things sent to me from, I think it was Braca Strong. Um, they sent me free stuff too, and I think they're based on the opposite coast. So
Okay.
it's just, yeah, one of those organizations that just cares, you know.
Hmm.
So I wanted to promote it and bring that awareness.
That's awesome. I love that. And I mean, yeah, I'll probably end up posting this next month since it is Breast
Right?
Cancer Awareness Month. Like it'll be the perfect little segue
Yeah, yeah, it'll
um
be great. Perfect timing.
to promote them. And yeah, it's amazing. Like we lost a family friend. Oh, how old am I? 10 years ago, I
Oh,
believe. And she
yeah.
was, yeah, very young, I think
Oh, it.
early 30s.
I,
Um,
I get the chills because it's like you know that
mhm.
breast cancer exists, but like once you're in the club, it just changes its entire meaning. And like
Yeah.
just hearing that brief story, like it gives me chills because
Hmm.
I'm thinking I was 36, like
Yeah.
I wasn't too far off from her age, and I'm just so lucky to have found
Oh,
it
yeah.
early and be here.
Hmm. Oh, for sure. Yeah, it is a scary. I mean, it's like one of those things that people talk about all the time, but like
All
until
the
you're
time.
close to it, you're like, oh, wait, like I don't
Oh,
know
this
how
is
much
what.
goes into it. I don't
Yep.
know
Oh, I
the
literally had
half
a
of it.
moment where I was like, oh, this is what having breast cancer actually means, you know?
Hmm. Yeah.
But I will say one of the best parts is the amazing sisterhood I've
Yeah.
met and created, and it's just been awesome. The
That's
cancer,
awesome.
not so much, but
Yeah.
the women I've met, super, super amazing women, very
That's
inspiring.
awesome. How are you doing now? Like you had the double mastectomy, like
I am good.
you're doing
I am
well.
good. Cancer free. It's a good thing I did it because they found
Good.
more cancer during surgery.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
so yeah, if I hadn't have done it, if I had gone the lumpectomy with radiation route, they wouldn't have found the additional cancer until after it was all done when they do a check.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it was a really tough decision, but
Yeah.
God I made it because otherwise I would have been making a whole other decision when they found more.
Yep.
So yeah, very grateful. So right
That's
now it's just
awesome.
a bunch of follow ups and trying to move on with life. It's tough.
Yeah. Well, congrats on kind of getting through that kind of barrier. And I mean, you're still kind of going through
Yeah,
the doctor's
yeah.
appointments and all of that. So it's not.
Something you'll always live with. It'll always
Mm-hmm.
be in my mind and kind of like that tiger at the door. Like, up, are they
Yep.
going to come in again? They going to come in? Stay outside.
Yep. You're a little more
Um,
aware. You're like, I do the checks.
very.
Like, everyone says they do them, but like, I actually,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
exactly.
actually looking and like, I know what to look for. But
Yep, exactly.
that's awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely, we're going to put like a little link too so that people can go and like donate as well. And then any
Perfect. Thank
money we
you.
make from the podcast too, we'll donate to her, to that
Awesome.
organization as well.
Perfect. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. So now kind of going in, you talked about childhood apraxia speech is your big area that you
Mm,
specialize in. Can you kind of give a brief little, like, what
yeah,
is childhood of apraxia
yeah.
speech?
Childhood apraxia of speech is a motor speech disorder, and it is essentially difficulty programming and planning, sequencing sounds, words, and syllables.
Mm-hmm.
And in layman's terms, I tell parents, like, as you and I are talking, the brain is sending messages to the mouth constantly,
Yeah.
rapid fire. For a child with CAS, those messages to the mouth are getting lost, and it
Mm-hmm.
results in inconsistent errors, vowel distortions. There's like 10 to 12 markers of CAS, and it's very rare, but it happens, and we need
Mm-hmm.
specialists utilizing
Yeah.
the principles of motor speech therapy. Um, and I just love it. I love CAS. I hate that kids have to have it, but I love
Mm-hmm.
being able to treat it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Um, So yeah, like diagnosing CAS and signs and symptoms, like you said, bowel distortions,
Yep.
inconsistent errors. Is there anything else that's kind of like a marker of like, oh yeah, like we need to do an evaluation to see if CAS is
Yeah.
a factor?
Especially in really young kids, like limited babble, limited phonetic repertoire. Like if they're only saying B's and
Mm,
schwa vowels, like buh, 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 everything is buh, buh, buh.
yeah.
That's kind of a red flag. Like, maybe something's awry.
Mm-hmm.
Voicing errors, words change. Ball might be Paul, then it might be Pepe, then it might be Abba. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so disrupted movements. Segmentation is another word for it. Like if I say it like is, that's segmentation. It's not that smooth, fluent speech.
Oh,
Um,
okay. That's a new one for
it,
me.
yeah,
Never heard of that.
difficulty. Yeah, difficulty with stressing appropriate syllables. Sometimes robotic speech. I'm trying to hit them all, but
Yeah.
uh, like I know them like the back of my hand.
Mm-hmm.
But it's something that you need really specific training for. So to diagnose, you need an SLP with a specialization. The pediatrician, the developmental pediatrician, the neurologist, no, they might come into play if there are co-occurring diagnoses,
Mm-hmm.
autism, dysarthria, genetic disorders, things like that. But
Yeah.
to diagnose straight up CAS, you have to see an SLP with specialization.
Okay. Is there any like evaluations that are kind of like your go-to for
Yeah,
CAS?
yep. I use the DEMS by Edith Strand,
The
and that
DEMS.
is the, let me see if I can remember every word, dynamic evaluation of motor speech skills.
Okay.
So that's for the
Nice.
motor
Mm-hmm.
aspect, but then I do an articulation phonology test to see what are the predictable language pattern errors,
Mm-hmm.
oral neck, language sample, receptive testing, because usually there's a discrepancy between low expressive and really high receptive. So it's
Okay.
a bit of a battery, but as soon as the motor aspect comes up, I go to the DEMS immediately.
Yeah. Oh, okay, cool. I have not heard of that one, so I definitely have to look at
Okay, yeah,
that and see.
yeah.
There's so many evaluation forms out there. I'm like, I
Oh
don't
my
even
gosh,
know like
so
what's
many.
good
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
um, So yeah, so you get a kiddo, you go through and you're like, yes, like this child has CAS. How would therapy look like moving forward? Like maybe a typical therapy session. What are maybe some things that you'd try to work on with them?
So it really depends on the age, but generally speaking, first I'm going to get an inventory of targets possible. And what that means is I send home a list of categories like favorite people, places, snacks, activities, books, anything that is super meaningful to that child. And
Mm-hmm.
then I base that list with their current phonetic repertoire. Like,
Yeah.
okay, let's say, oh gosh, let's say they love bananas,
Mm-hmm.
but they cannot get a three syllable utterance. Like they're speaking in monosyllabics. I might
Mm-hmm.
not target banana right away. I might target apple or bean if that's on their list and they have
Mm-hmm.
those sounds. They have the B, they have the P, but we're not going to jump to those three syllables right away.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
So I choose targets, maybe depending on the kid, 3 to 5 per session.
Okay.
And then there is just high repetitions.
Mm-hmm.
I use DTTC within sessions, which is dynamic temporal and tactile cueing. And
Okay.
that's basically a hierarchy of, let's say it together. Now you imitate me. Now you
Mm-hmm.
imitate me after a delay.
Yeah.
And then you're going to say it by yourself. Um,
Okay.
Generally speaking, the activities we do are just super personal to the kid. I
Yeah.
have one session where we are reading Thomas books the entire time. And then I have another kid who wants to do Lego kits. And guess
Mm-hmm.
what? You're going to say your word 5 times before you get to the next step. or you say it
Mm-hmm.
10 times if you're older and it's pretty accurate before you
Yeah.
get one Lego. I've gotten really good at embedding those trials into whatever activity we are working on.
Yeah. About, and I mean, this obviously can, there's probably a large number of kiddos, different ages, but like, what is kind of like a typical age that you might be seeing like the diagnosis starting, or like the majority of kids in your practice? Is there a certain
Typically,
age?
I will see kids between 2 and 4
Okay.
with the suspected, but then an SLP will, rightfully so, say, I'm not qualified to diagnose, I'm not confident to diagnose, I'm not even sure if this is this, if this
Mm-hmm.
is CAS. And then
Yeah.
they find me, and then they come for a confirmation of the diagnosis. And I'm a firm believer in, it's not about age, it's about how much speech a child has. I've
Mm-hmm.
had 2-year-olds come to me with enough speech to analyze and
Yeah.
participate in motor speech testing. And guess
Mm-hmm.
what? We were right. They have CAS. I've
Yeah.
gotten older kids that I was like, nah, this is not CAS. This is phonological or whatnot.
Yeah.
So it's about how much speech there is to analyze to get an accurate diagnosis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes it a little harder. Like even when you're saying like the babbling and stuff, it's so hard because it's like, yeah, there's phonological, there's artic. Do they just not have like certain sounds? And like that's just a really hard age to be like, oh yes,
Yeah.
like this
Yes.
is
There are
CAS.
some kids that are just so clear as day, apraxia. And then there are some others where I tell the parents, there are characteristics consistent with the diagnosis, but I'm not confident yet. I need to see them
Mm-hmm.
a few times.
Yeah.
And I'll put that in my report. Like, I'm not going to confirm a diagnosis or establish a diagnosis unless I am 150% confident.
Mm-hmm.
So,
100%. We can't just
yeah.
be like throwing diagnoses around and be like, yep, you're close enough. Like,
It's
we'll give you
overdiagnosed.
that.
It's underdiagnosed. I have a 10-year-old that came to me, and this was the first time anyone's ever mentioned apraxia of speech to the
Oh,
family.
jeez Louise.
It's just wild. So, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they definitely come in a range of ages, but typically 2 to 4
Yeah.
is the big diagnosis time.
Okay, nice. So I have some questions from like
Sure.
the community, just like people that have had kids that they've worked with, that I wanted to run by you. I think you've already even like answered some of them. Um, so one person asked, is there a discrepancy between reading and writing with speaking? Like, could this indicate apraxia when you include like reading and writing?
So apraxia almost always affects the reading and the writing.
Okay.
I see a lot of kids that end up needing, whether it's OT for handwriting because
Mm-hmm.
of the motor disorder, it might be in the hands too, but
Yeah.
then also reading. Kids with CAS are super inconsistent with their sounds.
Mm-hmm.
And so that sound letter correspondence gets really tricky.
Yeah.
And let's say even in their head they know, um, okay, B says but,
Mm-hmm.
and they're trying to read baby, but they
Yeah.
say AP, but
Mm-hmm.
they know, no, I've heard it differently, but they just can't get it out.
Oh,
And
okay.
then it's looking like he doesn't know how to read baby, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So I often, once there's enough of a phonetic repertoire, I will often start kind of informally working on sound letter correspondence just to see the status, like where are
Mm.
they? Can
Yeah.
they identify? Can they decode? Can they encode? That
Mm-hmm.
reading and writing component.
Yeah.
So it's something that parents should always watch out for.
Oh, okay. Good to know. Yeah, it's like you think of just like, oh, apraxia, like it's the oral
Normal,
motor, but it's like
all
it
normal, yeah, but it's
never
more
just
than
targets one
that.
area.
Oh gosh, that's right,
Unfortunately.
right, yeah.
Let's see. Does apraxia always correlate with articulation difficulties, or could you solely see maybe like difficulty with writing or prosody or pragmatics or anything like that?
Yeah, definitely. It can affect, that's a good question. It can affect a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for example, I have a kiddo now, he's almost 4, primarily motor speech, but he's got some articulation issues. Like he's got a bit of a lisp with that S.
Mm-hmm.
We have to find that balance of, okay, well, I don't want to teach him an incorrect motor pattern, but he's also a little young. to say, hey, tongue up, close your teeth. We're giving it a
Mm-hmm.
try.
Yeah.
But I also have a kid with pragmatic language. He comes across much younger than he is because he can't get out full sentences. So
Okay.
socially, he appears kind of awkward. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and he presents as if he's not quite sure what to say. When
Yeah.
reality, it's because he can't get it out or he hasn't practiced it enough.
Huh.
So yeah, I mean, it affects so much, and
Yeah.
it's sad. I do my best to kind of prepare parents and say, here's what you might expect with them starting school, reading, writing, social groups. You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, it can be overwhelming.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So that kind of leads into like adding ums and uhs into conversation and like having trouble getting things out. You kind of said like that's an indicator. How would you, this is kind of my personal question, but like how is that could be different than fluency?
So it's funny you say that because I stuttering can be common with
Mm-hmm.
kids that have CAS because their mouth can't keep up with what they want to say. So I have a kiddo right now. I need the, I need the, I need the, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like I just wait for him. But in my head, I'm like, is this a true stutter? Is this
Mm-hmm.
secondary to motor
The
speech
Apraxia.
because his
Yeah.
mouth just can't keep up? And I just get to know my kids really well, and I
Mm-hmm.
know if I bring out a new toy, this kid is not going to be able to get out his request. And
Yeah.
I know that's not a true stutter. That's him saying, how do I ask for this? How do I
Yeah.
ask for this new toy, the ball popper? So it's a lot of knowing fluency when they
Mm-hmm.
are atypical disfluencies, um, and they qualify as a true fluency disorder. Or are
Mm-hmm.
they atypical because he's trying to get something out that motorically is just too big of a load for him, if that makes
Okay.
sense? And sometimes they
Yeah.
do co occur. I've
Mm-hmm.
treated fluency and CAS in the same session.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
that's so interesting because like yeah, you learn like in grad school it's not like you have a whole semester or anything on apraxia. You have like the
Yeah.
one day and they're like, "Hey, this
Hardly
exists."
anything.
Like
Read
here's
this
a
chapter. Here
PowerPoint.
we go. Yep.
So, yeah, I never would have even thought that like yeah, those like the disfluent patterns could also be, but I mean it makes total sense now that you like sit here and spell it out and I'm like, "Oh,
Yep.
obviously." Like
Right.
Um, I know we're kind of cutting short on time, so maybe the last question, um, like any tips on certifications or CEUs, like if people are interested in going farther in their knowledge of CAS, like what would you
Yep.
recommend?
That's a really good question because I see parents asking about, I need a certified SLP in CIS, and there is no certification. There's just
Mm-hmm.
ongoing trainings. And what I just have speakers that I really love. Edith
Yeah.
Strand, Dave Hammer, Sue Kaspari, Cari Ebert,
Mm-hmm.
Edwin Mass. He does a lot of research in CIS. He has some really great articles and
Okay.
trials that he works on locally in Philadelphia.
Oh,
So
nice.
those are the names I typically go for. But as far as a certification, there is none.
Yeah. And you do, what's it, DC, DC,
DTTC,
DTCC
and that is
Okay.
through Edith Strand. And
Through
it's a
Eda.
free course.
Oh,
So I
nice.
highly recommend it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Have you
Yeah.
heard, like, what are your thoughts on prompt?
Oh, I also do prompt.
Yeah. I've
Big,
seen
big.
prompt, so that's the one that I'm familiar like
I
I've been able to
love
observe, but
prompt. And
hmm
it is motor based. It's tactile and kinesthetic, which some kids just really, really need.
yeah.
I use it within the DTTC hierarchy. So when
hmm
max cues, which equate to tactile
Yeah.
cues, are required, I do prompt. Now, not
Okay.
everyone's going to do that. You know, not everyone
hmm
is prompt trained. But yes, I love prompt. I
Yeah.
find a lot of success with it. I know
hmm
that there's like some, you know, ruffling of feathers, like there's not enough EVP. And it's like, well, we have to remember one of those sides of the triangle is clinical experience and results,
hmm
you know?
Yep.
And I see really great progress with kids getting prompt.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, Erin, thank you so much for sitting
Oh
down
my
and
gosh,
going over all this information, everything under the sun, and even talking personally
sure.
about your experience and Unite for Her too.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Natalie. It's been really fun. I'm such a
Yeah.
speech nerd. I love talking speech.
I do too. Like I'm still like we kind of talked about, like I'm like, what population do I work with? So I'm like doing this podcast and being able to sit down with people and like learn about all these different things. And I'm like,
Learn it
oh,
all.
take my notes. Like once I go back and I'm like editing everything, I have like the notebook there, like, oh yep, remember this, like add that, like
Super great learning opportunity to do this. Yeah, it's awesome.
yeah.
I'm glad you approached me. Thank you.
Yeah. I love this so much. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I know you have a patient to get to, so
I
I
do.
will let you go, but thank you so much and I'll definitely keep in touch.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Erin. Have a good day.
All right. You too. Bye.
Bye.